Hey, we're going to be discussing the top 10 things the industry does that no longer provides value to the customer. All on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, here every week discussing all things pests. And we're going to be discussing the top 10 things the pest control industry does that no longer provides value to the customer. Yet we do it anyway because that's the usual. Everybody is doing what everybody else has done forever. And nobody stops to question, is this really necessary? What we're doing day in and day out, providing real value to the customer. And what you got to, when you sit there and you talk about value to the customer, in a value proposition, perception is always reality. I mean, value is perceived. Unless you're really, when we're talking about pest control, you got to understand, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, a lot of you don't want to hear this, but the reality is that pest control is a commodity. Because the what's associated with pest control is not your ability as a professional technician to solve that problem. It's associated with the chemical you use. And if the customer can buy the chemical, then he thinks that chemical application is what provides control, then it's really not your expertise, is the chemical you have. For decades, customers thought we had this super chemical that they couldn't get their hands on. And they hired us because, you've got that. Once I can't solve it with the over-the-counter stuff, I'll hire a professional because he's got the super chemical. And the reality is that all the products that we use today are available over the counter, whether online or at a store. Most of the same active ingredients we use, yes, at a little lower dosage for over-the-counter RTU ready-to-use products, but most of the products are available. If you go online, the biggest beef people are having is you can buy Termidor online and contaminate the earth and without knowing what you're doing and add 5 times more, and there's no regulation against it. Yet we have to abide by label rates. It pisses everybody off, and I understand what's happening. But it is what it is, and that's the reality. So how do you provide value to the customer and things that we do that don't really provide value as perceived by the customer? Let me give you an example. You have 2 types of customers. That's just basically 2 types of customers when it comes to pest control. Those that want you to spray and hose the entire house down with a fire truck to make sure you got everything, and the more chemical, the better. And the new breed of customer that is coming on the market that says, I don't want chemicals in my home. Value is perceived by one, how much chemical you use, and the value is perceived by the other about how much chemical you didn't use, or if you used a natural product or not, or if you used a different method. So really, perception is reality. But there are things that we're doing and we continue to do that waste product is not environmentally friendly, let's say, call it that way. There's no need for it, yet we're doing it anyway because that's what's expected to do. You go into a house and the customer is telling you where to apply the product. This is the only industry I know where the client is telling the professional how to do his job. You walk into a lawyer's office and you say, I need you to write the contract this way. And the lawyer's going to say, no, I'm going to write the contract this way because my job is to save your butt in the end. And if you get into trouble and you write a wrong contract, I can't save your butt. You go to the accountant and say, I want the P&L to read this way. And he's going to say, no, I got to file it this way because that's the way the IRS says we have to file it. You go to your doctor and you tell your doctor, I want you to write me a prescription for this. And the doctor says, no, I'm the doctor here and I will prescribe it. You go to the electrician and you tell him, I want you to wire the red wires and use blue wires. And the guy says, no, this is the way code says we have to do it. Yet when it comes to pest control, You have to do tons of training, tons of years of expertise in understanding insect biology and understanding chemistry. And the customer thinks that what we do as an industry, is basically apply chemical. So in the mind of the customer, pest control is a commodity. It's no different than black beans. There's no difference. If I took one bag of Goya beans, and if you don't know what Goya black beans are, you're not Hispanic. And you take a brand like we got down here in South Florida, a store brand like Publix, and I take those beans apart and take them out of the bag, put them side by side, you couldn't tell me the difference. A bean is a bean is a bean. A black bean is a black bean is a black bean. A pinto bean is a pinto bean. The only difference is if you got a pinto bean and you get them in the bag and they haven't been triple washed, sorted, or cleaned, you're going to end up with rocks. You're going to end up with dirt. You're going to end up with different sizes. The quality is determined by the sorting, the cleaning, and the washing of those beans. But in the end, it's still a pinto bean. It's the same darn thing. It's a commodity. When people look at commodities, they're going to buy the product based on the price alone. So when you say, when the customer asks you, what are you going to be treating my house with? Well, we're going to use bifenthrin, or you don't want to tell the client, and you're going to use bifenthrin and you're going to spray my baseboards. And you ask the other guy, well, what are you going to use? Well, we're going to use bifenthrin. Well, which bifenthrin is cheaper? If you're going to be a baseboard jockey, which bifenthrin is cheaper? The customer is going to go with the cheapest option. See, unlike anything else in the world that you can compare, you can't compare pest control. It's all perception. It's all marketing. It's all the words you use. It's unless you have a client that is a referral that says, hey, I had 3 other guys and this guy's been the best one I had, the customer is going to go with you on the referral. But if you're just simply relying on marketing and pitching and advertising, there is nothing the customer has to compare it one to another. You say, I'm the best guy in the city. Really? I don't know. I can't. There's no apple. There's no orange to compare. There's nothing. You're selling something that the customer wants control. The customer wants eradication. The customer doesn't want to deal with the experience. There's nothing you can do to compare those two issues. But certain things that we do not really provide any value for the client. And I composed a top 10 list based on what I hear pest control people say. This is you guys talking through me. I am your muse. But the number 10 thing, we're going to count it down. The number 10 thing that does not provide any value to the client, you caring about, is caring about tattoos. That's right, folks. Most of my customers that I go visit have tattoos. They have tattoos. I've got guys wearing a Rolex watch, driving a Maserati, and he's got a tattoo sleeve. And somehow he made it and was very successful, not caring about his tattoos. So, now here's what I will tell you about tattoos, guys. You don't want a lower back tattoo if you're a pest control technician on the lumbar region. And when you bend over, your crack shows and there's this tattoo right there. I got to tell you guys, it doesn't look sexy. So if you're going to wear tattoos, make sure that you have the right tattoos and it looks hot on you and you have muscles. Because if you're 75 and you're overweight, I don't think it's no longer attractive to be a tattoo guy. But that's my opinion. I don't have tattoos. I don't wear tattoos, but I don't have anything against tattoos. So the number 10 thing is caring a whole lot about tattoos anymore. The number 9 thing that we put on this list is using foam for rodent and wildlife exclusion. I don't know about you, but a rodent can eat a mile of that foam and not care. So when you're foaming a house and you're saying, we're going to do rodent exclusion, and you use foam for the tubing and the pipes and the walls to exclude rodents, you're no longer providing value to the customer. You're about the Yugo of the exclusion market. Okay, if you remember Yugos, they're a Yugoslavian car. I think it was a 2-cylinder car. It cost about $3,000 in the U.S. Okay, that is the Yugo of pest exclusion. All right, using foam. I use foam on the inside for dealing with the pipes underneath the sinks and all that. Listen, without that, you're not getting real control of large roaches and a lot of problems. So spend the 5 minutes and exclude it, okay? Now, dragging a hose around the property, power spraying the foundation of the home is mostly a show. It is absolutely not necessary. Second of all, I stopped using hoses because it took 15 minutes to drag it around a 3,000 square foot home to treat the perimeter. Okay, it's asinine to do that. Okay, the customer is impressed that 150 psi is coming out of that hose and hitting the ground, but you know the chances of you destroying shrubs here in plants and sprinklers and cutting that hose on a gutter to spray the perimeter of a home, really, you can do it with a backpack. Okay, you can do it with something else. So it's not really providing any value. It puts on a good show, but you're taking 15 minutes to reel and unreel a hose, which you could be doing another house in that time frame. Okay, granulars and baits are far more effective than the 8 ounces per 100 gallons that you put in there to dilute the product, because we're assuming that you're applying the right label rate and your equipment is calibrated correctly, and that you're putting out the right dosage. Other than that, you're putting excess water out, which you're probably wasting another $100,000 a year of valuable resources of water that you don't need to spray the foundation, because you don't need that insecticide at 5 gallons per 1,000 square feet to penetrate the higher level of the soil and get below the soil medium. You don't need it. All right. Number 7, offering free inspections. Okay? Free inspections. If you go to your doctor and you say, "Doctor, I need you to check me out because I don't feel good," the doctor is not going to give you a free consultation. Your lawyer is not going to do it. He might do it once to bring you in as a client, and then that's it. And then he's going to evaluate you over the phone and size you up and see if he's even worth your time, you coming in and taking an hour of his time at $250 an hour. No longer do mechanics do free analysis anymore. And you take the car to the mechanic 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and he would spend 4 hours on it trying to figure out what the heck was wrong with your car. And then he writes you an estimate. And then you say, "Okay, I'm going to shop it around to see if I can get a lower price because I don't like your price." He diagnosed it. The next guy that comes in, he's going to look at that and say, "Yeah, sure, I'll knock $100 off of that because he invested no time to do it." I mean, are you really providing an inspection for free that you're going to spend an hour and a half on that property for free, not close the deal, and not be a salesman? The reality is that most free inspections are nothing more than sales pitches, and customers already know it. We close 100% of our business over the phone right now without having to do an inspection. Now, mind you, we don't do termites. We don't do a lot of things that are structural, but it's lawn and ornamental. I don't need to go and inspect the property for lawn and ornamental. I already know you have a fungus on your lawn and we're going to treat for the fungus. I don't need to go to your property and see how big your infestation is of roaches, because our protocols will deal with it no matter if you got 10,000 roaches or if you got 100 roaches. So by developing protocols and procedures, you can tell a free estimate and a free inspection are two different things. Now, if you got a WDO, you got to do certain things, your state requires it, that's a different matter. But just offering a free inspection, like free estimates, we give free estimates over the phone. If the customer wants us and demands that we go on the property to look at his trees, we're going to charge $125 an hour to give you a consultation, because we're not going to spend 2 hours with you for you to tell me I'm going to go shop it around. We know when a customer's serious. We know when they're not. We know when to invest. What we do is we give you the price. Here's what we explain, everything we're going to do. We explain why we're different. We explain our value added proposition and why you're not getting control with the last 3 companies you hired. And then if the price works for you, we're going to go ahead and then give you an hour of free consultation where we inspect your irrigation system. We inspect your plants. We inspect everything in that home. And then we tell you what you need to change and the landscaper needs to do, because 90% of the problems in the home were caused by the landscaper: improper system irrigations, improper planting of trees, the improper location, and all these things have to do with the customer not getting what he wants. And creating a realistic expectation from the client and saying, unless you fix these things, all the chemical in the world isn't really going to make your garden look any better. So here's the number 6. Treating under the sink when there's nothing there. You're spraying under the sink, you're treating under the sink, and you sealed and everything is gone. There's no sign. The monitors are clean. There's nothing there. Yet you still spray it because the customer expects you to do it. For no reason. Here's another one. Using gel bait as a preventive measure. If you're doing a roach inspection and the customer had German roaches and you're inspecting the area, you find no eggs, you find no nymphs, you find no adults, there's nothing in the monitor, what the heck are you putting bait out for? I walk into kitchens where there's bait on top of bait on top of bait on top of bait. The bait behind the plate that comes in from the piping in the wall, and you're putting bait there and you're piling it up every single 2 months, 3 months, whenever you're coming. And you know what? You could have just sealed that with foam and that insect isn't coming across. If you would have treated the back of that wall with a dust or something where it's photo stable now, there's no humidity, no water back there, there's no light going in there, that thing is going to last forever. Especially if you use Cymexa. You use Cymexa in a kitchen, 10 years in those voids. That thing is not going to get damaged. You don't need to reapply it again every time you come and redust again for no apparent reason. So gel, when the insect isn't present, does absolutely no good but waste your product and make the kitchen look like crap. So stop doing it. Putting bait out for rats in the attic and calling that rodent control. You got to be the laziest. How should I put this so I don't offend you? The laziest person in the world to do that. You can trap it, you can exclude it. But I was in a home once and they threw bait up in the attic and there's holes all over the place and nothing's being excluded. And for 2 weeks, we couldn't live in that home. I had one personally where there was a division in the roof that we didn't see in the structure. We excluded it and we put the traps outside and the rodent was still inside and the rodent died by itself. I put all the bags you want of that anti-foam, anti-smell, and that smell was there forever. I lost the account. And we didn't even put bait in the attic. So stop being so darn lazy and doing what homeowners do. Now, if you're doing commercial apartments and you're doing every door every month, spraying inside, you're not controlling the problem. And every door service does not control the problem. You're better off doing a rotating of 25%, 33% every month and focusing on the units and doing a really good job in those units and spending, instead of 2-3 minutes one unit, spending 5 to 8 minutes in a unit that really has a problem and controlling the problem with IGRs, with gel bait, instead of just spraying the baseboards in the kitchens and the bathroom because you're getting paid $1.25 to do it. Number 2, treating the interior every single time on a monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly basis because that's what was done. Here's the 90% of the calls I get. Ring. Thank you for calling. How can I help you? I need you to come and spray my house for bugs. Have you been to our website? Yes, that's how I found you. Have you read what we do? No. Let me explain to you what we do and why we do it this way. And I give them my presentation of why it is that we control pests better than our competition and why they're not getting control for the last 3 companies they've hired because they've asked for the same thing and the customer obliged them. The company obliged them. I want you to come and spray my house for bug every month. And everybody jumped in their truck, went out there, sprayed the house for $35, $45, and they're there every month and she still has roaches. That's 90% of our clients that we get on the phone. Treating the interior every single time is absolutely not necessary to get control of most household pests. Yeah, but I have to do it because my company says I have to do it. You're stuck like Chuck. I can't help you. Your company is stuck in 1970. that you have to spray the house every single time, every time you do it. And the number one, spraying baseboards as a preventive service. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you're spraying every baseboard every single time as a preventive service, you're classified officially as a baseboard jockey. And I've even thought about making a special product for you guys. I thought about making leather saddles for your B&G so you can ride them all through the house. Baseboard service every single time does absolutely nothing to prevent pests. We used to do it 11 years ago, and the year I stopped, most of my customers gasp. We had to promise them that if it didn't solve the problem by doing IPM, that we would go back to baseboard spray. Guess what? None of them did. We proved it wasn't necessary 11 years ago, and we haven't done it since. For general household pests in Florida, I don't know where you're at in your state, but a baseboard spray does absolutely nothing and does not improve the quality. We're adding an additional product, an additional chemical into the home when it's absolutely not necessary. It provides no value to the customer. But I'm a professional salesperson. I wasn't ruined by the industry of spending 11 years doing it the way everybody thought it should be done. I went out and consulted when I started this business with the people in the industry that are doing things differently, because I was a salesperson and I understood sales processes, and I understood about dealing with objections, and I understand how to create and understand the expectation that the customer has and manage expectations. In the sales process, if you don't manage the expectations and you don't bring up the potential objections to your service, the customer will. Most people are not professional salespeople. They're afraid to bring up objections and deal it with the customer on the forefront before they close the deal. And then when they close the deal, the customer has buyer's remorse and thinking, well, I understood this, I was promised this, I was told this, because of either overzealous salespeople or unqualified salespeople. So my suggestion is learn how to sell, because the reality is that the things that I've listed here that everybody says can't be done, we've been doing it for the last 11 years. And I haven't lost a single client, and we're growing at a rate of 28 to 32% a year without a problem. In a market where eco-friendly pest control is not desired. It isn't California. It isn't San Francisco. This is Miami. And pretty much nobody cares. And yet, we're getting people to care about what we do. So guys, it can be done. And you don't have to do things. You need to start thinking inside the box and start thinking outside the industry. Look at other industries that are doing things differently, that are not related to our industry, but are applicable. Start thinking outside the industry. And with that, hey guys, I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.